Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Okay, so today we're diving into a seriously fascinating piece of economic analysis that uncovers a massive, absolutely huge contradiction hiding right in plain sight. On paper, the economy is booming. Companies are posting record profits and stocks are historically high. By all traditional metrics, everything should be getting better for all of us. But out in the real world, everyday professionals are feeling an undeniable squeeze. It's tough out there. So we're going to unpack exactly what the data tells us about this wild disconnect. And more importantly, we'll explore the real human impact behind all those numbers.
Okay, let's dive into this. It used to be a universal truth, like a basic law of gravity, that a good, stable job was your ticket to a stable life. But today, the math just isn't mathing for millions of people. We're seeing this central mystery unfold, especially in major metropolitan hubs. People are working crazy long hours. They're advancing in their careers, getting promotions, and yet, those fundamental milestones of the middle class, like buying a home, are somehow slipping even further out of reach.
You can see this stark contrast super clearly when you compare the macro numbers with the on-the-ground micro reality. On one side, we've got booming GDP and just incredible wealth generation. But on the flip side, rent is surging way faster than our paychecks. And look, we aren't just talking about minimum wage workers here. We're talking about highly trained professionals, doctors, engineers, programmers. These are the folks who historically anchored the middle and upper middle class in cities like New York. And now they're finding themselves totally priced out of the very neighborhoods they serve. So what is actually breaking down in the engine of our economy?
Well, that brings us to Section 1, Capital versus Labor. To figure out why this is happening, we really have to look under the hood at the mechanics of modern wealth generation. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly where that divergence happens. Over on one side, you have the owners of assets. These are folks who hold real estate, substantial stock portfolios, or outright own businesses. Over the last few decades, the vast majority of wealth growth has just concentrated right there. Their net worth expands simply because the value of capital goes up. But then, on the other side, you have the wage earners. Even though these are highly skilled, totally vital roles, their income is inherently tied to their labor. And while sure, wages have grown, they've moved at an absolute snail's pace compared to the explosive, sky-high growth of asset values.
The mathematical reality of this is honestly pretty profound. If you rely primarily on a salary, your income growth is generally linear. And lately, it's barely keeping pace with inflation. Getting a 5% or even a 10% raise is fantastic, right? But structurally, that raise struggles to catch up to a real estate market that might jump 20% in value in just a really short window. Asset values compound totally independently of whatever the median wage happens to be doing. And that, right there, is exactly why so many professionals feel like they're running on a treadmill that just keeps speeding up.
Let's explore exactly how this plays out in Section 2, the Wall Street Epiphany.
To really grasp how this dynamic operates in the real world, imagine a young, brilliant math whiz. Comes from a modest background, but lands a super lucrative job trading at a major Wall Street investment bank. At first, it's this incredible intellectual challenge. They're analyzing Federal Reserve decisions, tracking global supply chains, reading corporate reports to predict exactly where the market is headed. But eventually, this trader makes a pretty startling observation. Some of the most incredibly profitable trades they execute aren't bets on economic prosperity at all. Instead, they're actually bets on economic friction. They're profiting off the expectation of rising inflation, the hiking of interest rates, a slowing economy, and a real drop in everyday purchasing power.
Now, this creates some intense cognitive dissonance. On the trading floor, a crisis is literally just a market event. A spike in interest rates, that just means the value of bonds shifts. A drop in consumer demand, you just adjust the corporate profit models. Easy, right? But outside the financial district, down on Main Street, those exact same data points mean real, tangible pain. They mean someone losing a job, families missing mortgage payments, or a neighborhood's small business shutting its doors for good. The professional financial environment just has a way of turning real, messy human crises into abstract, sterile data points.
So the crucial point is this realization often forces a massive perspective shift for those on the inside. Now, the professionals executing these trades aren't malicious. They're incredibly smart people just doing their jobs. But the environment rewards a very specific, detached way of thinking. When they realize that their most successful financial forecasts actually coincide with millions of people finding it harder to survive, well, many start to rethink their careers entirely. They realize that financial markets do not exist in a vacuum. They are deeply, inextricably intertwined with the actual fabric of society.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 3, A Tale of Two Cities.
Let's zoom in on New York City for a second, because it really acts as the ultimate microcosm for this economic divide. The source material shares a highly revealing anecdote about this. An interviewer spoke with a billionaire who lives in one of those massive, ultra-luxury residential complexes right next to Central Park. The interviewer asked him about the park, and the billionaire casually admitted he never actually walks in it. Never! When asked why, his response was simply, "Everything we need is inside our building." We're talking fitness centers, pools, private dining, relaxation zones, the whole shebang. His wealth provides this complete physical insulation from the outside world and its everyday economic realities.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the direct contrast when you step outside that billionaire's tower. Talk to a doctor working at a city hospital. That doctor's daily reality consists of severe budget cuts for social programs, critical shortages of medical personnel, and a rapidly growing line of patients who desperately need help. These doctors are dedicating their lives to the city, yet they're spending massive chunks of their own income just to afford basic rent. Many are even commuting crazy long hours because living anywhere near the hospital is just financially impossible.
The contrast between that billionaire and the city doctor is such a powerful reminder. To a bureaucrat, a budget deficit or an inflation metric is just a line on a graph. But economics is fundamentally about the lives of real people. Behind every single inflation percentage point is a nurse, a teacher, or a social worker taking on exhausting overtime shifts just to preserve the exact same standard of living they had 5 years ago.
This brings us to a really critical point in Section 4, the cost of inequality and trust. When a decent standard of living becomes basically impossible to maintain despite putting in hard work, the consequences ripple out way beyond individual bank accounts. It actually becomes a critical structural issue. The source notes that when people fundamentally believe that honest hard work no longer allows them to move forward, we start to see a deep societal fracture. People naturally begin to doubt the fairness of the entire system. Economic inequality transforms from just a personal financial struggle into a genuine threat to overall social cohesion. Think about it. If the model allows owners of capital to perpetually accelerate away from the working class, the long-term stability of that model really comes into question.
Let's move to and see how this builds historically, because there is actually a really optimistic precedent here. When society collectively acknowledges a systemic problem, massive positive shifts can and do happen. Back in the 19th century, recognizing severe worker exhaustion led directly to the 8-hour workday. Then, in the 20th century, we saw the implementation of vital workplace safety laws, the creation of social insurance networks, and the absolutely crucial expansion of civil rights. At one point in time, all of these changes seemed radical, or even impossible. But they happened. And they happened because the public recognized the existing system was simply unsustainable.
So where do we go from here? Let's look at Section 5, the real metrics of success.
So how do we address this current unsustainability? Well, while there is definitely no single magic bullet, the source material outlines several major approaches that economists are actively proposing right now to fix affordability. Some argue we need a massive overhaul of zoning laws to drastically increase the housing supply. Others suggest fundamental changes to the tax system, aiming to better balance the scales between capital gains and labor income. And then another camp focuses heavily on reinvesting in education, professional training, and boosting overall worker productivity. Now, each of these approaches has its own fierce advocates and critics, but they all stem from the exact same consensus. The pressure on the middle class absolutely has to be relieved.
Because ultimately, a truly strong economy is not defined by how high the stock market climbs or the abstract top-line growth of the GDP. No, the true economic indicators are ground-level realities. What does rent actually cost? How much are groceries this week? Can a young professional actually afford to buy a first apartment? Can they plan a family without this ever-present, paralyzing fear of financial ruin? An economy is only as successful as its ability to provide its working citizens a stable, predictable, and dignified life.
Which brings us to the ultimate question posed by today's analysis. Will major cities remain places where hard work actually gives you a fighting chance at a decent life? The future of these incredible hubs of culture, finance, and innovation depends not just on the banks and the billionaires, but on the teachers, the engineers, and the firefighters who actually keep the engine running. Answering this question is going to require open dialogue, looking honestly at the data we've explored today, and deciding together what kind of future we actually want to build. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will leave you to ponder that vital question.